So, you know me by now. I've made a name for myself for reviewing the Fairly OddParents, and in every live stream I did around the time that this show came out, I would constantly get people asking me if I was going to talk about the Fairly OddParents live-action reboot. And now I'm talking about it. This might seem a bit exaggerated when you first hear it, so allow me to put on my most serious tone possible. If there ends up being a Fairly OddParents season where every episode is bad, that season will look great when compared to this one season of the reboot. This is the worst TV show I have ever seen. Full stop. I cannot think of a worse one. Not currently airing, not from the past, not ever. This series is so awful, I'm struggling to find something really bad to compare it to, and if you know Butch Hartman, you might expect that from him. Oaxis is essentially a dead idea now, so he went back to making TV shows, and the cash cow Butch Hartman franchise is of course the Fairly OddParents. And the Fairly OddParents is up there with SpongeBob in being one of Nickelodeon's cash cows. The fact that this show got made isn't very surprising, even when you realize that the main show hadn't even been cancelled for 5 years before this came out. What's more surprising is the fact that it is as bad as it is. Oh, don't get me wrong, I wasn't expecting this to be any good, but it still manages to be worse than I was expecting. Butch Hartman's work seems to be getting worse and worse. The quality of his shows has decreased as time goes on. It's almost like an exponential decay function. I mean, when you make shows like Bunsen is a Beast, it's clear that you don't want to listen to any creative input but your own, and you start making things like It and the 10th season of the Fairly OddParents. In my review series, so far I'm only at season 5, but from what I've seen of seasons 9 and 10 of the Fairly OddParents, I don't expect I'm going to enjoy them. But fine, sure, you want to start fresh. Okay, let's see the fresh start to the new Fairly OddParents reboot.
In the beginning, there was a boy.
Okay, what is this? No, seriously, what is this? This is some of the worst animation I have ever seen, ever. Even the Nutshack is animated better than this opening shot. And it's just Timmy standing there blinking. It's a very easy thing to not make look terrible, but somehow they did. And of course they go right to clips from the episodes of the original show, immediately giving viewers something visually appealing to compare this awful animation to. That's a special kind of ineptitude. How brain dead do you have to be to cheapen the animation to the nth degree and show viewers just how much you've cheapened your animation right after? It's not like the Fairly OddParents isn't a profitable franchise. It's one of Nickelodeon's most successful IPs. Don't tell me it couldn't be done. Even when they moved to Flash in season 10, the transition was jarring, sure, but even that didn't look this bad. I'm at a loss for words. Wild Grinders has better animation. But whatever, you didn't want to spend any kind of budget on animation. Fine. We're only 30 seconds into the first episode. There should not be this many complaints in 30 seconds.
Today, Timmy is like super buff and handsome.
Hey, moron. They already did that. It was called Oh Brother. It was practically the same design.
That is exactly how I look.
Timmy, let me let you in on something. Even the Drake Bell version of you is better than this version. And when you consider that those Drake Bell movies are some of the worst, most hated pieces of media in the Fairly OddParents franchise, that helps your case even less.
I am headed off to college now.
Not just any college, Princeton.
Okay, this is where my suspension of disbelief completely dies. Princeton. Really? The kid who was repeatedly shown to fail at everything in school ends up getting into Princeton. I have a problem with this. I mean, AJ is really the only character I'd expect to be able to go to Princeton, but definitely not Timmy. But of course, every secondary character in the show died in season 9, and so we have to make up stuff about the main characters and completely forget their personalities. And oh yeah, I forgot to mention, this show has a laugh track because it already wasn't stupid enough. Laugh tracks as a whole need to die. I don't need to be told when to laugh, especially when the laugh track plays after a joke that wasn't even funny to begin with. So Timmy wants to leave Cosmo and Wanda behind while he goes to school because apparently he needs Cosmo and Wanda to be his cousin Vivian's fairy godparents while he's gone. And we get one of the most stupid lines of the episode.
But you can't just give us away to someone else. It's against the rules.
No! There was a whole episode about that. In fact, there was a whole season where Timmy didn't want to do that and was still forced to. Like, no, not at all. And you'd expect Wanda, you know, a fairy, to know about the rules after the 2 decades this franchise has been around. Timmy tells Cosmo and Wanda that it's okay to let someone else have his fairies because he got permission from Jorgen von Strangle while he was playing video games. And this is kind of stupid because Timmy's only way of even getting to Fairy World to talk to Jorgen is usually through Cosmo and Wanda. There's no explainable way that Timmy could have done this unless Cosmo and Wanda also knew about it, but they act surprised when Timmy tells them this.
He's not a mess!
Oh God, I'm a mess!
And the same old Butch Hartman humor that I've seen like 500 times. That doesn't get old ever, does it?
Okay, do you expect me to apologize for reconnecting with my high school sweetheart last week, marrying her on a whim, quitting my job, selling her house in Oldsburg, and moving to Dimsdale to live with them? Because now that I say it out loud, I realize that was nuts. So I will. I'm sorry.
This guy seems like a great dad.
Yes, I'm an amazing father. Thank you for noticing.
I'm just gonna love these new characters, aren't I? So because it's been previously established that Vivian hates surprise parties, just guess what's behind that door. Guess. Yeah, surprise party. I swear these Fairly OddParents story beats are so predictable, I'd imagine that there's probably a joke like this in seasons 5 through 8 that I haven't seen yet. And if that does happen, I'll be sure to bring it up.
Because tomorrow there's a highly anticipated championship basketball game against a hated rival town, and I'm the star player, I guess. You know how it is.
The list of characters in this show that I hate is getting longer the more I watch. Can he, like, break his leg or something?
I think I broke my leg.
Thank you. Yeah, that was kind of anticlimactic. I mean, just compare this to the Pitch pilot from 1998 and you'll see how truly bad the animation is. So, something made in 1998 with very little budget is animated better than a show made after the show had massive financial success, and the technology of the medium advanced way further than anything that could have been made back then. There is no excuse for this animation to be as bad as it is. Out of Jimmy's Head has better hybrid animation effects, and that's saying something. The third worst Cartoon Network show is animated better than this show, from a man who has had experience in the animation industry for decades. If you want to know just how sad this show is, that right there is your TLDR for this review.
You promised Jorgen von Strangle that no one besides Vivian would see us.
Yeah, and you, Mr. Hartman, promised that you created my childhood, but I can see that you're trying your hardest to ruin it in 22 minutes, so thanks for that. Oh yeah, and for some reason they decided to have the theme song play 11 minutes into the episode because that's the perfect place for it.
Timmy Turner, what did I tell you about letting anyone besides your cousin see these fairies?
Okay, you want to contradict episodes of the main show? Fine. You want to say that an average kid can get into Princeton? Fine. But don't sit here and tell me that you don't even know what happened in the same frickin' episode! Jorgen isn't even supposed to remember giving permission to Timmy to do this, because as the episode established, he was too into his video game. How lazy do you have to be to forget what happened 8 frickin' minutes ago? So the rule is that Vivian and Roy alternate making wishes and they can't make wishes back to back. Which doesn't seem like it could be abused at all. And what's worse is that maybe season 10 of the main show could have been better if they implemented this. But in this show, since we can already see that Vivian has some flaws, it doesn't seem to knock her down a peg like it would have with Chloe. And it essentially punishes her for Timmy's mistake, which isn't right and doesn't help this story.
That sounds overly complicated.
Yes, but it will be funny.
No, Jorgen, nothing about this show is funny.
Oh, that's the last train out of Dimsdale.
Okay, I'm fine with there being magic in this world and all that, but you're telling me that Timmy has to take a steam train from California to New Jersey. And also, it's right next to Vivian's house. I'm at a loss for words, for the second time.
You know, I feel like wishing for something I like to call solid gold bits.
Looney Tunes did it first.
We'd like a table for two.
Great. I'd like a pair of solid gold pants, but I'm not bugging you about it.
So the next scene is basically just them wishing for stuff, and that's it. It's just them wishing for stuff.
Adventure Home!
I'm not gonna wish for anything until you promise me you'll never wish yourself out of Dimsdale.
Wow. I don't even know what to say. I'm not even shocked that this is the direction the show wanted to go. I mean, of course it's sad that she's in a town she doesn't even want to be in, but her stepbrother blackmailing her is also supposed to be seen as a good thing, and not as an antagonistic action. But hey, the main tenet of storytelling, conflict, only showing up at 16 minutes in the episode is exactly how shows are supposed to be paced. But what is Roy's motivation even? Why does he care that this person he's never met before remains in Dimsdale? And what does he gain from this? Usually it's the villain of most shows that does bad things with little to no motivation. So they managed to get the farm animals out of the house. Yeah, that was one of the wishes because Cosmo's a moron. And
Roy, your life was awesome before I came here. Why would you even care if I did?
oh, okay. So this episode completely understands the problem and just doesn't care. Yeah, we screw up at writing and we're proud of it. So because contrivance, Vivian agrees to stay in Dimsdale and she wishes for Roy's bones to become unbroken, and finally the episode is done. There has not been a single review I've done so far that was this annoying to get through. The show was a whole new level of awful. I can't think of a single thing I liked here. Not one. And in fact, I'm struggling to find reasons to not completely lose it here. How can a show end up like this? Like, even in shows that were destined to be bad, like the Powerpuff Girls reboot, I can at least find good aspects, or things I liked. For example, there are even some good Teen Titans Go episodes. But here, every character is either a moron or completely unlikable. The writing is awful, the pacing is awful, and what little animation there is done poorly. This show is an insult to the Fairly OddParents, even the bad episodes. You might think that after how poorly it went the first time they tried to make a live-action Fairly OddParents, they'd stay away from the concept. But of course, learning from one's mistakes is apparently something you don't do when you're past your prime, because only someone who is past their prime would ever put their name on something as bad as this. I really hope this thing doesn't get a second season, but as we've seen before, quality rarely correlates to longevity, and as we've seen with the original Fairly OddParents, even some of its first few seasons weren't the best. Nickelodeon, do us all a favor and get some quality control. Stay away from this show. You'll be glad you did.